The rebel chases power because they feel powerless, right? I want you to think back to when you were a kid, or especially most of us, we were teenagers, right? And you felt like you were, I would say, fighting for your independence, or trying to achieve more of your independence, trying to prove that you were responsible enough to be an adult, right? And in that um, process, you felt like you were always going against your authoritarian, which is the parent, right? This is probably your first interaction with rebellion at this time in your life, right? All this cycle all of this power dynamic is a cycle. It's a cycle of chasing power, which plays out into the world at large. It plays out into society at large, right? Most of the world at large, right? It's all about chasing power, the dynamic between the rebel and the authoritarian, right? It's a cycle of chasing power, right? One is trying to assert their power, their dominance, which is authoritarian, trying to keep their power. And one is chasing that power, looking up to that power, right? By chasing it, right? And in that chasing, they're going against it. But going against it, you're chasing it, right? That's the dynamic between the rebel, right? Which is chasing the power, right? Because they feel powerless, right? Because they feel powerless, they're chasing that power that the authoritarian is has attained, right? But that power is an illusion, right? The rebel has not figured out that that is an illusion yet, because they haven't tasted that illusion of power yet, right? So what the rebel is just a revolutionary, right? You hear the word revolutionary, a revolutionary, right? And evolutionary, right? These are two different words, evolutionary and a revolutionary, right? Revolution and evolution, right? The dynamic between the rebel and the authoritarian is a revolutionary cycle. It's a revolutionary loop, right? It's a revolutionary loop because once the rebel, which is a revolutionary, um, achieves its role of snatching the power away from the authoritarian, right? First of all, the rebel feels like they'll be freeing themselves and freeing others by snatching the power away from the authoritarian, right? But what actually is happening is that the rebel is snatching the power away from the illusionary power away from the authoritarian and grasping it for themselves, right? They want to, deep down, they want to attain that power, the illusion of power, because they feel powerless, right? The only reason why you chase illusionary power is because you feel powerless, right? The only reason why you go against someone who's holding illusionary power is because you feel powerless. That's the only reason why you would be fighting against authorities. That's the only reason why you would fight against authoritarian. Is to is to attain that illusionary power for yourself because you feel powerless, right? And so this is a revolution, re-evolution, right? It's a non-stop loop that doesn't change anything, because then the rebellion, the rebel, is just replacing the authoritarian, right? It's just replacing the authoritarian to keep up with the cycle, right? To keep up with the cycle. He's not freeing anyone. He's not necessarily freeing anybody. They're not necessarily freeing anybody, right? They attained something that they thought was going to free them, only to find out that it the illusion of power shackles them into what it was before, right? It just becomes a different um it just becomes something different, right? It doesn't look the same, but it is the same, right? It's the same. um it's the same. How should I say this? It's the same prison, right, that they're stuck in, right? So they're just mirroring each other. The rebel and the authoritarian are just marrying each other. They're both chasing something that's not really there, right? They're both chasing that something that's not really there, that they're missing within themselves, right? And the whole loop becomes revolutionary. And the rebel doesn't the rebel it will come to a point where when the rebel attains the authoritarian stage, when he or she, when they get to that, when they snatch the power from the authoritarian and they take it from themselves, there's going to be a point when they realize that um it's something that they don't really it's not it's something that they don't really they never really wanted, right? They wanted some, and it's not, before they get there, they they push for more power, right? More control, more dominance, and then they get to a point when they get exhausted and they feel like they this is something that they didn't want to attain, right? Because now they feel totally empty, right? It's a loop that plays out in many dynamics in life and in society at large and in the world at large, right? It's a revolutionary loop. Revolutionary loops never really it changes things on the surface. It only changes things on the surface, but not the change is not evolutionary. Evolutionary change is a a solid change, right? Revolutionary change is an illusion. Things, when you're in that revolutionary loops, things don't necessarily um change. It's just the veneer of it, the whatever you're seeing on the surface changes, but it's the same control, domination, power loop. Evolutionary loop is just realizing the power that you have inside you, which is not domineering. It's a loving power, right? And that love influences others to love themselves, right? That's the evolutionary change that everyone is looking for, even even the so-called rebel, right? Even the so-called rebel, right? That's what they're trying to attain, but they don't know it yet, right? Um, an evolutionary change, it comes without fighting. There's no fighting involved in evolutionary change. Evolutionary change is being, just simply being, right? There's no fighting against anything, because if you fight against the system, right? If you fight against the system, you're fighting yourself, right? Because the system that you're fighting is you. You're just fighting in a mirror. You're the product of it, right? All you have to do is be something that you want to be, right? If you don't want to be the system, don't be the system. You don't have to fight it, right? Thank you for watching this video.